So, welcome to the class. I want to start with motivation because it's the real creator of who we are, how we experience things. Yes, society puts a lot of emphasis or direction on us, who our mother and father are. So sometimes we're living under their, I don't know, I wouldn't say their pressure, but their ideas. And sometimes we don't understand ourselves. We sort of like get caught up in their worlds. And so motivation is about who am I, where am I going with myself? And it doesn't matter whether you're young or middle-aged or older. It doesn't matter because it's how we're setting ourselves up to experience that day, that week, that month, our life. So motivation is really, really important. And essentially, I'd like to always put things in sort of a very practical way, although it is based on some Buddhist principles. But the thing is that it's nice to sort of shift back and forth to see, okay, how realistic is it? So basically, we all like to be happy. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I picked this shirt today because I thought I'll look good, and then I brushed my teeth and I didn't wash my face because that made me happy. You know what I mean? Like the decisions I make, and then I'm in a hotel tonight or today, so what they offered, I took the food that I wanted because that's what makes me happy. And really, if we check up, we're continually making decisions on this makes me happy. I don't want to do that. This is what's going to make me happy. And we can apply that universally to say everybody, we're all in the same basic sort of concept. And so when we start to sort of pull back a little bit and start thinking about ourselves and say, well, who am I and what am I doing? I'd like to have a little more control of my life. Then you could say that, well, I'd like to be, you could say, a little more enlightened. Okay, I mean, it's a word to use. And so we have our self-motivation. I'd like to be a little bit more clear about my life, the meaning of my life, what principles I have, what direction I'm going in, and such. So the meditation or mindfulness or just sort of, I like to be happy and I like to do a better job at it. Okay, so that's what it means to become enlightened, all the way up to something incredible. But basically it's that. So we can have that motivation. You get up in the morning and so maybe I'm going to meditate or I'm going to do some prayers. As far as I'm concerned, if you have any type of spiritual perspective, you're really fortunate compared to people that don't have anything, I have lots of fun stories to share. But anyway, I'll save one for a little later because it's a good one. But anyway, so that we have some sort of a spiritual, totally, not totally materialistic perspective on life is good. It means we have something inner quality. Anyway, so you say, oh yeah, okay, get up in the morning. I'd like to have I'd like to be more enlightened in my life. Do a better job, be more clear, whatever. Okay, but that's what you could say that's self-motivation, which is good. I mean, hey, you've got to be self-motivated. But there's something interesting, and you have to look at the chemistry in your body, the feelings you have. Okay, so let's say you wake up, I'd be more enlightened in my life. Good. Maybe I'm going to meditate a little bit, or I'm going to just review the things that are important to me about how I'm going to live today. Maybe I have whatever. So you have those sorts of thoughts. Then what I'd like to do is expand that a little bit. And it's not taking away anything from, your personal needs, but it's just to bring to mind someone that you love. And what I'm talking about is like, and again, if you're in a relationship, you bring to mind maybe your mother, your father, your partner, maybe a friend or something like that. But there's got to be some feeling of love there. Like, why that? Now, if you happen to be single, if you have a pet, that's really good. Because pets are wonderful, You come home and if it's a dog, it runs up to the door and it's wagging its tail. It's so happy to see you. I mean, you can't say your partner does that, especially wagging their tail. But anyway, so the thing is, point is, so you bring to mind someone, you say, okay, this person, I have a feeling in my heart. And then you can say, well, I'd like to be I'd like to offer a more enlightened relationship to them. Still, it's your personal work, but what you've done is you've changed the chemistry in your body a little bit. You've got a nicer feeling there. And both are good. I mean, someone that says, I want to be more enlightened about my life. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to drink my green solution, and I'm going to do a little yoga, and then I'm going to try to adjust my attitude. Great, nothing wrong with that. All I'm suggesting is, if you want to put a little bit different tone in who you are, then just bring to mind someone you love and say, I'd like to offer a better relationship to that person. And that's why I'm going to drink my green solution, or I'm going to, do my yoga or do my meditation, It's just a little thing, but you changed a little bit something going on inside of you. And that, if you did that every day, you're going to start to have some really nice feelings. And the funny thing is that in your partner or your friend or whoever it is, they're going to say, "Well, what's happened to you? You're nice to me." And actually, in Buddhism, one of the biggest things, the biggest compliments you can have for your practice, is that people say, "Well, you've changed. What's going on with you? You're nicer." And that happens often. Like when somebody becomes a meditator or starts to be a little bit more conscious about their life and sex, those sorts of compliments come. And then it's a really nice validation for who you are. But anyway, so we're attending here. You came here hopefully to be, some sort of better understanding of things. And so, like I said, just bring to mind someone that you love. And it's important, that feeling. It's not just an idea. Try to have a little bit of feeling. And so, whether it's you bring to mind a child smiling at you, your grandchildren or your children, or maybe it's your pet dog, it comes up and you scratch it behind its ears, and I love you, little doggy, or whatever you're going to do. And then just say, okay, well, I'm here for them too. It's a simple little thought. But you've now created what we call karma, which has an amplitude, has a bigger vista to it. And that's going to be who you are, especially months, years, as you go by, that you start to have this interesting quality about yourself. And that's motivation. So motivation is really important. It is our creator. In Buddhism, we don't have external creators. We have external influences, culture and society and things like that. But the bottom line is still, we are the one that makes a decision of who we are, how we want to grow up. And that's where, I think when we look at religions, any religion, it's going to give us some sort of a message about what's the meaning of our life. So in Buddhism, it's not something external, that there's some sort of external entity that's controlling things. We do have external things, the Buddhas, gurus, Dalai Lama, all of those people and good friends. They're external and they help us and support us. But the bottom line is we are the creator of who we are. And so therefore, having that clarity and trying to be more conscious of my motivation. So that's what I wanted to start with, was just, in the morning when you wake up, get out of your bed. Yes, you're going to go to the bathroom, and yes, maybe you're going to go down and push your little espresso machine button on to get your coffee and stuff like that, which is fine, those are good. But then to say, okay, well, I'd like to be a little more enlightened, and I'd like to offer a more enlightened relationship. Okay, now we have 3 classes today. We have now, this afternoon, and tomorrow. And I'm going to be doing an overview of your Buddhist practice, or let's say practice in Buddhism, with some practical advice. And then on tomorrow afternoon, there'll be a tar initiation. So, Mexico, I say it's like Guadalupe. But, and on one side, just a side comment, like in Buddhism, we do have Buddhas. They're enlightened beings, and so that when I'm in Mexico and it's very Catholic, which is beautiful, at least they have some sort of faith tradition, and in Guadalupe, that if there really is Guadalupe, and she's an enlightened being, God or whatever, however the Christians or Catholics are defining her, is that how can that be biased, like only the Republicans or only the Democrats? That'd be ridiculous, or Mexico, PRI or PAN, or was it Morelos, whatever. Anyway, so my point being is that there are external things that can support us and influence us and inspire us. So Sunday afternoon there will be the Tar initiation, which is sort of divine feminine energy. And so whether you have, let's say, a deeper feeling for Guadalupe or Santa Maria, that's fine. Let's not think that, they have a limited mindset and they're only going to be doing something for a particular group. They're a universal being, so they work for the benefit of universal sentient beings. Anyway, so that'll be on Sunday afternoon. You can attend as a blessing. If you are a Buddhist, you'll have a chance to let's say, revalidate your Buddhist refuge. If you've never been a Buddhist before, you could take refuge for the first time. That'll be part of the ritual. And remember that in Buddhism, the primary ethic or principle of you're a Buddhist is, to the best of my ability may I be beneficial, to the best of my ability may I not cause harm. That's what it means when you become a Buddhist. You have those two principles in your life. So anyway, you can do that. There will also be the Bodhisattva vow, which is that my life is, I'm living my life for more than myself. I mean, yes, I want to take care of myself, but I'd like to be beneficial to others, and we'll talk about that over the next 2 days, which is called the altruistic feeling in our life. And then there will be the introduction. So one of my Tibetan Lamas gave a good example. He says, you will be given the cell phone number for Tara, and you can ring it every day with her mantra, and one day she might answer. And that'll freak you out, wouldn't it? But the thing is that that's what mantras are. And they're also, you're trying to get connected to a more enlightened lifestyle. And that's what Tara represents. It's a divine feminine energy which wants to help people be happy. May they be happy, may they be free of the causes of suffering. And your practice of that is to get more aligned to that, more connected to that. That's what it's about. Again, it's not worship, it's inspiration. So that's the overview. Today, this afternoon, tomorrow morning is basically structure, and then on Sunday will be the initiation. Now, a little bit, we're going to talk about mindfulness, and it's on the screen coming up a little bit. But first, it's important to understand how Buddhism works with you. So there's two things. There's what you call structure, and then there's you. And what that refers to is the teachings, called the graduated path to enlightenment or whatever. They're like a scaffolding that goes around a building. And within that scaffolding, then the building gets built. So when you have principles or things that you believe in, that's the scaffolding. What's being built? You. So it's very important to understand there, to have that distinction that I need some sort of set of principles about my life. How am I living my life? How is it important? What's the meaning of my life or the theme of my life? Okay? Well, that's the structure, the scaffolding that goes around who you are. And so we're going to cover that as we go along. But what's the thing inside, which is you, what you're doing to yourself? Well, that actually is just mindfulness. Getting in touch with yourself. That's what it is. And the scaffolding gives you that sense of direction so that as you build yourself up, you get to the third and the fourth and the fifth floor, the previous floors underneath it are secure and stable. And so the graduated path gives you that sort of ability to have a solid foundation of who I am, who am I, where am I coming from? And then as you get a little more developed, maybe you're more in touch with yourself, you're starting to work with your feelings and such, are more enjoying good feelings and knowing how to deal with uncomfortable or difficult feelings. That comes from a deeper level of practice. That happens from your mindfulness. How to be conscious of yourself. So mindfulness is that. Getting in touch with yourself, slowing down a little bit. Really, it's that. It's getting in touch with yourself. Who am I? Where am I coming from? And then the scaffolding gives you some sense of direction. But it is important that you're the one that is sort of building that scaffolding, that you're setting yourself up how you understand things. And that's where spiritual practices are important. If you look at, for example, Buddhism has been around for 2,500 years, so it's got a lot of background behind it, so it's got pretty good credentials, you could say, and so that's worthwhile. So the techniques or the instruction, the techniques that are used, that scaffolding, where what it's doing is it's constructing you inside of that scaffolding. Who am I? Okay, so first off then, let's talk about getting in touch with ourselves, which is mindfulness. So I did this slightly in Juarez yesterday, but I want to go through it again. So we have it on the screen, so you can look at that. 5 mistakes people assume when they think about mindfulness. Mindfulness is so fashionable now. It is actually. What's really interesting is even in schools now, they have mindfulness programs. And it's about that kids that do some form of meditation actually do better. They get better grades. They're more in touch with themselves, which I don't want to refer to that repeatedly, but it's something really quite important. They feel good about themselves. So mindfulness is something that is got some definite qualities that help, and it's been recognized in school that does. I remember way back when a friend of mine, this is back in 1960 something, a friend of mine was in UBC, University of British Columbia, and the TM came to town, and the Transcendental Meditation. And so they said, we want to see how well people do with or without meditation. Now they do a mantra, but it doesn't matter, it's still mindfulness and such. So one of his friends got the mindfulness mantra, and he was in the test, the group that didn't have anything. Sort of to watch two groups. So there's 100 people that got mantra and 100 people that were the, I forget the word for it, but anyway. Control group, yeah. Okay, so my friend was in the control group, which really pissed him off. But anyway, and they did their test for, I think, 6 months or something like that. And it's right, the ones doing the mantra did improve. They got better marks and stuff like that. But as I say, my friend, about the second or third week into it, was so jealous of his friend that he beat him up, but he managed to get the mantra out of him, and so he recited it too. Anyway, I guess his marks improved. Who knows? Okay, but anyway, so mindfulness has been around a long time. It does definitely have benefits. There's you have better control of your stress. You'll have a better memory. You'll have even physically, your immune system will improve. There's a whole bunch of ones. I can't remember them all right now. But, this is all, you can just go online and say benefits of mindfulness, and Google will kick it all up. Llama Google. There's Dr. Google, Llama Google, Gardener Google. Okay, so mindfulness focus is on what's wrong with you. No, it's about being at peace with yourself. Some of us have had, rough experiences when we grew up. We had some trauma, maybe we were abused, or maybe we just had a difficult mother and father, and so we were carrying luggage. And we all are. I think of it as we're all damaged goods, So mindfulness isn't about, focusing on the negative, but it's learning how to be at peace with yourself. There's a very good example coming from Trungpa Rinpoche, and it's this, that, if there's a pile of excrement on the floor right here, there you go, it's ugly, and they sort of pull back from it. But if you were a gardener, you'd say, whoa, fertilizer, rich fertilizer, Now, it needs work. You need to compost it, mix it up with some grass and some straw and maybe some other things. And maybe immediately it doesn't become beneficial, but after you have composted it well, you're going to have really good flowers and vegetables and things, or whatever you use the fertilizer for. Well, that's the same thing with yourself. That, we have shit inside of ourselves, stuff that happened, whether it's stuff we did or things that happened to us, And so we could say, or recoil and say, oh my God, I don't want to touch that, And then you end up with a quite fragmented personality. You got stuff that is good and stuff that's not. And so Yeah, you're not very, let's say, organized. It can be whether, like you grew up in a dysfunctional family, or maybe your parents got divorced and you saw a lot of stress in that, or all the other things that could have happened. So the thing is, inside of you, there's this damaged areas, for your own sense of well-being. Because, like when you grow up and you get involved in a relationship, you bring the luggage of how you saw your mom and dad work and do stuff. Or whatever would happen in your life. So the thing is that meditation is about getting in touch with yourself, slowing down, being peaceful with the shit of your life. Now, it's not like ignoring it, but it's saying, okay, I have these issues, I have this stuff that's happened. Now, I'm not saying all of you are like that. Maybe some of you are wonderful and be a great family and stuff. I mean, I hope so. I only hope so. But if we did have a little bit of dysfunction in our family, or the big one, we all went to school, and then we had all the peer pressure, which is always very intense, and we carry that well into our adult years sometimes. Anyway, back to the main topic. So meditation is you get to be peaceful, you're a little bit more in touch with yourself. Okay, now then what you do is you can't ignore it. So for example, the excrement, like if you're a gardener, you don't just sort of don't touch it. You have to slowly, maybe with first a rake, you're able to say, okay, let's stir you, let's sort of get you mixed up with a little bit of compost. Well, what's that? That's good attitude. I like to work on this. I like to be more at peace with myself. And it's a very personal thing. I mean, saying, I want to be happy. I want to be good. I want to feel good about myself. And so, okay, I've got this stuff that, certain situations trigger it. I don't want that anymore. Okay, so I sit down, maybe just 20 minutes a day, I do some meditation, I'm at peace with myself, I'm happy. And then what happens, though, is that this stuff, you become more conscious of it, that it is maybe pushing you a little bit. But then you say, okay, no, positive attitude, that's the mulching. That's the composting of the stuff, is at first you just have good attitude. And then slowly, you're more at peace with it. It doesn't bug you so much. When you're in a relationship with somebody, it doesn't come up and sort of mess up the relationship because you're more conscious of it. This is what mindfulness is. It's you becoming a conscious individual, And then maybe you're finally actually able to sort of really be at peace with it. It doesn't bug you anymore. You've resolved it. I'll take 4 or 5 years to do that realistically. Anyway, so then you end up with that. So what's the fertilizer? Like what's the flowers that could be with that? It's actually compassion. So let's say if you were abused as a youth, and so it's very painful. You have the person that did it, you have yourself, and you could have a victim consciousness about it or something. But okay, you got in touch with yourself, you calm down, you're at peace, okay. I mean, you don't really have to forgive the person that did it or whatever, but you're sort of more at peace with it. And so then, okay, now, and then you really arrive at a place where it's okay, I'm comfortable now, I'm more comfortable. Then, when you see another person who's had that problem, I mean, you could say, oh my God, that's so horrible, which then just validates the fact that that person was victimized. Or you could just have love for them. Wow, I understand you. It completely opens another door. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm validating, you're a victim and let's go and sue that guy or whatever. No, it's like, wow, I understand you. And that applies to whatever your situation is, my dad died when I was 6 years old. I grew up without a father because my mother never remarried or anything. And so I had this big lacking in my life of a male love, and I never understood it actually. I really didn't understand it at all. I remember when I was about 16, I was at my best friend's house, and it was a Catholic family actually, named Fred. And we were sitting on the lawn doing something. We were 16, yeah. And then his dad came out of the house and called his name. And suddenly I got very emotional, and I didn't understand why. And so I went home, and it's because I'd never heard a man call my name in love. And that's what Fred's dad did. He said, "Hey, Fred, you're my son." And I didn't understand myself. I remember 16, Anyway, and then what did I do? Of course, I went off and joined an all men's club. I became a monk. And then I had all these daddy figures, Dalai Lama, Lingren Poche, Trichin Poche, Lama Yeshe, fulfilled myself with my daddy problems. But anyway, my point is that I can now say if I see somebody who grows up without a father or a mother, I have empathy for them because I understand, even if they don't understand it, I understand the damage that's happened. That could be happening, depends on the individual. So anyway, that's what meditation is, mindfulness, getting in touch with yourself, being able to feel good about yourself, not carrying luggage from stuff that's sort of previous history. So, although, I mean, the thing says, mindfulness focuses on what is wrong with you. No. Mindfulness allows you to get at peace with yourself, get in touch with yourself. It's not focusing on a negative, but the negative is going to show up. I'm so sorry, it just doesn't go away. But at least you're going to be in a much better position to deal with yourself, because you got personal space. That's what meditation is. It's like a buffer. It's a bit of personal space where you can be at peace with yourself. Like, I like myself. I'm okay. And so when the stuff comes up that is bothersome, okay, take a few breaths. Okay, maybe it doesn't happen quickly, but I slowly get more at peace with it, so I'm not reactive to it. Okay? Anyway, that's the first one, this first myth. Second myth is a result of meditation is dull, flat, cultural light, calming indulgence. No. Okay. Meditation, yes. Actually, one of the Tibetan lamas said, a sign that you're really meditating is when you do get bored. Because then you're actually getting in touch with yourself. And I mentioned this in Juarez, that, we are continually looking for entertainment. And of course the big one is our cell phone. We can just continuously, every second, even driving your car, you can be trying to do it as you're driving, and stuff, because we're entertaining ourselves, which is so sad in one way, because what it means is that we can't just sit there and be peaceful. I'm okay, I don't care what Twitter and Facebook are doing, I'm okay. So anyway, the point of it, that our culture is very organized to make you feel dissatisfied. Lama Yeshe, one of my teachers, said, the culture of basically North America, Canada, America, and a lot of other countries, is you're never good enough. Your hair is not good enough, it's not the right color, your face isn't smooth enough, you've got wrinkles, your teeth aren't white enough, you smell bad, you've got to shower more, oh, now you have to wear better clothing, oh, but your clothing has to be washed properly because if it's not, you're not good enough. So what I mean is this continual barrage of you're never good enough until you buy that product. Anyway, so it's important to be able to disengage from that, because it's like this thing of this, like I say, you're never good enough. So getting in touch with yourself, doing meditation. Yes, sometimes it takes a little bit of discipline, okay. But what it is, you are not having to be entertained all the time. You don't need external stuff. You don't need your cell phone. You don't need the television. You don't need your radio on. You don't need all this stuff. You can be just, I'm okay. I'm happy. It's a big thing. And it's not going to happen quickly, but as time passes, you get more in touch with yourself. So I had to sit in the airport, Mexico City, for 2 hours because the plane was 2 hours late. So we arrived at 7:30, quarter to 8, and okay, next flight's at 9:30, good, there's a quick connection. No. It was on your cell phone, of course. I'm sorry, Mr. Channeman, you have a delay in 2 hours. So finally at 12 o'clock, so that was actually 9, 10, 11, 4 hours I had to wait. No, it's okay. I have my cell phone entertainment. I sit there, it's okay, just do some breathing, be at peace, it's okay. It's not like getting upset. So, yes, it does require a little bit of discipline, but no, meditation isn't dull. It's, I'm okay, I'm happy, I'm at peace with myself, I like myself, I feel good. That's what it is. So it's you arrive at that because it's a state of feeling and consciousness and awareness, mindfulness. Okay, mindfulness is just Buddhist in disguise. No, lots of religions have meditation, mindfulness. They don't maybe call it meditation. In fact, the whole word mindfulness was to get away from meditation because it was too Buddhist or Hindu. But basically, lots of religions have it. So mindfulness isn't Buddhism. Buddhism has some good things to offer, but it's certainly not necessary. You can get lots of things. I mean, again, just Google, mindfulness, and you get all these, guided meditations and stuff, and all sorts of different people. There's lots of stuff out there. And even universities have departments on mindfulness. I don't know if UTEP here does, but maybe it does. Well, they have a Burmese temple, don't they? So, it snuck in there, didn't it? What's a Burmese temple? Oh, what do they do? Well, they meditate. Oh, no, I'm joking. Anyway, so mindfulness is not, mindfulness can be completely outside of it. In fact, the Dalai Lama had a really good commentary. He said, you can break Buddhism into three things: philosophy, psychology, or the religion. Okay? And the philosophy, that actually is quantum mechanics. And Buddhism's really good. I can say, wow, Buddha Shakyamuni, for a guy sat under a tree in the middle of India 2,500 years ago, and he understood the dynamics of phenomena. You could call it phenomenology, really. But he understood the nature of reality, that, okay, there's phenomena. And then what's really unbelievable about India is that they had atoms. I mean, I was just wondering if I don't know, I'd never studied, medieval history or history in Europe, but they ever talk about atoms? I don't think so. And then actually zero is another one that came out of India, or maybe the Middle East, because Persians were really, really pretty smart. But the main point is that the philosophy of Buddhism stands up pretty good to quantum mechanics, the dynamics. I mean, atoms are not a final item, that rather they're a dynamic of, electron, protons, and things. And then even then, when you go and look for them, are they a wave or are they a particle? If you've studied this a little bit. And then there's I think Matthew Ricard's done some really good books. The Quantum and the Lotus, I think. Or maybe that's a book for Jewish people, I'm not sure. But anyway, the point is that philosophically, Buddhism stands up to scientific investigation. It's not a faith-based religion. It has intelligence. Now, there are some areas where maybe some faith has to be, or sort of reliance on someone else's commentary has to be done. But basically, I would say an awful lot of Buddhist presentation stands up to investigation. So that's philosophy. You don't need to be a Buddhist on that. You can study the philosophy. It's like, hey. Next is psychology. I used to go to a group of psychologists in Seattle when I was living in Canada. I lived 14 years in India as a Buddhist monk. Came back to Canada, returned my ordination, that is all the precepts and rules I had as a monk, and I became a lay Buddhist, which is fine. I didn't get excommunicated. It's not like that in Buddhism. It's just how many rules you have in your life. So as a monk, I had 253 rules. And when I became a layperson, I just had 5. And they're sort of precepts, principles that you live your life by: not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, not to be unfaithful, and not to take intoxicants. So anyway, I did that. So I was 18 years in Canada, and then I've now been 20 years in Mexico. But coming back to Canada, actually I'll share something. So I come back to Canada, I return my ordination because there's no cultural support. I mean, in India, I had this environment that just totally supported me. I mean, even I could have wandered around and been a beggar in Indian streets, and I would have been supported because the culture had it. Where in Canada, there's nothing, there's actually even some churches would say things like that meditation was the devil will get you. And even yoga was bad. Yoga is the pathway to the devil. That was a view back in 1980, 1984, 85. That was sort of the thing. But that all got disproved. It's not like that. And now, a lot of actually churches and different religions do have mindfulness, in their practices and stuff. Anyway, coming back to the story. So I'm in Mexico, or I'm in Canada, and the psychology. I used to meet with 14 psychologists. So I'm the Buddhist, and there's 14 clinical psychologists in Seattle. And every Sunday, or once a month in the wintertime, we get together and discuss different principles. Buddhism stood up really, really well. I was with professional PhD psychologists. And Buddha's presentation, their presentation, very good. It was actually interesting. One of the ladies, she was Jewish, and she said, it's so funny, because if I'm a psychologist and someone comes in the scene, I can say, I'm Jewish. That's fine. But turn around and say, I'm a Buddhist. She says, oh, I can't do that. It's so funny. Why? I mean, I'm Jewish, or I'm Christian, or I'm Baptist, or something. Oh, okay, but you're a psychologist. Oh, but I'm Buddhist. Oh, no. Anyway, so it was sort of a revelation she had about herself. Anyway, coming back to the thing, so we're with the psychology. So you can have the philosophy. It's basically science, scientific investigation. Some things maybe a little bit are obscure, but basically a lot of what Buddhism talks about is quite realistic. Second thing is the psychology. Buddhism's got very good psychology. And finally, if you want to, you could become religious. That is, you take Buddhism as a spiritual path. So you can bring the three together if you wanted, but it's not a necessity. So, coming back to the point number 3, mindfulness is just Buddhism in disguise. No, it's not. But, if you are a Buddhist, you will get some very good advice about mindfulness meditation, so that's good. Number 4, mindfulness is being used to create a perfect capitalistic killers. I don't know if that's, they do say that if you are a business person and you do mindfulness meditation, you might be able to be a better businessman. I mean, because you're more astute, more aware, and stuff like that. But certainly, it's not the goal. I mean, that point number 4 just basically goes through that having a good teacher means is that if you're taught mindfulness, is you become more in touch with yourself, in touch with your feelings and emotions. Okay, so that's that point. And then 5, mindfulness is another fancy fashion. Now, we're gonna meditate a little bit. Okay, so I'm rambling a little bit, but okay. In the morning, I mean, how many of you got up and brushed your teeth? Somebody didn't. Ooh. But we'll get close to you for the bad breath, But no, I mean, why? Dental hygiene, it's just it's common sense, and wash yourself or bathe yourself or whatever, eat reasonable good food. But I would say that just every morning, at least morning and evening, we brush our teeth, dental hygiene. So meditation, mindfulness, is actually just mental hygiene. Nothing more than that. Get in touch with myself, be at peace with myself, feel okay about myself. So that's the goal of meditation is that it's just basically mental hygiene. And just because I'm going to finally finish with sort of a psychological or reviews on the stuff, that in psychology they've got lots of departments in universities now, and they said, okay, so they did a review of people that meditated, and so they gave them just mindfulness, not anything about motivation or like that, just how to sit and to be mindful. And it was breathing meditation, okay? And so they observed them, and they started the group, and then they waited for 6 months, and they had to do 20 minutes a day for 6 months, and then they would check them up. And then what they found is that that's where then they found, okay, they definitely had better ability, because they tested them, you could say, that they had better management of stress, they were less reactive, they had better memory. Although those are the things that came up in the test, so these things all improved. 20 minutes a day for 6 months was all that was required. But then that's where I quoted earlier that actually their immune system changed. And that was really interesting. Physically, your immune system got stronger, more healthy. And I'm trying to think of why? What does meditation do? So the best example I can think of is if you start up your car and you let it just purr, just run idle. Okay, I mean that would be an example of when you sit in meditation. Put your body in good posture. Shift your attention to your breathing, so you have natural breathing. Okay. And then you try to hold mindfulness. You hold your attention to that. And it's not stressful. I mean, it does require a bit of discipline. But it's like being at peace with yourself, okay? And trying to maintain that. They say from this moment to this moment to this moment to this moment, I'm able to maintain a continuity of awareness. That's what mindfulness is, okay? It's not some stress furled up and your forehead gets thing, No, it's not, it is discipline, but it's not like tense concentration. It's a continuity of awareness, and it's on the breathing. So that I guess for somehow, when your body sort of gets put in neutral, you're able to breathe, and then your mind and your physical body are a little bit more in harmony. The body benefits from that, the immune system, okay? And even they found that you healed faster. So I guess you're a meditator. They cut you, and then how fast did he clot? Anyway, I'm joking. Okay, but anyway, they found that you did heal faster because you meditated. So the immune system improved, and just a sense of well-being. Okay, so those are some of the things that came out of psychological research of 20 minutes a day of mental hygiene. Interesting, yeah? So, as much as you every morning get up and you brush your teeth, okay, for why? Well, you like to have your teeth in good condition, you don't want to pay the dentist a lot of money, you want that bright, shiny white smile because it's got, some chemical in it or whatever, the toothpaste, all of those things. So, just like that, mental hygiene is, I don't want to have to go to a psychologist. I don't want to have to be a psychiatrist. I don't want to take, my Prozac. I'd like to be at peace with myself. I'd like to be happy. Okay, so that's the benefits for meditation. Okay, so that covers then the 5 faults and just an overview of meditation. Now, I can ramble really a lot, but I want to open it up to questions or commentaries about anything. And if not, then we will meditate. But first off, just any questions, thoughts, sharing, commentaries? In Mexico, if I say, ¿Tienes preguntas? If I say, ¿Tienes un comentario? Oh, sí. It's how to stimulate a Mexican. Okay, so, commentaries?
So when you did the 3-year retreat, what was each day like?
Hell. I'm just joking. No. So yes, I was a Buddhist monk. Just to give you a bit of context, I got ordained in 1971. I was 20 years old. I then studied with the Tibetans. I had to learn the language. I then studied with various teachers. And then within that, I did short retreats and like that for basically 10 years. And I was living in India the whole time, except for some short trips. I did one to Australia, but that. So I got quite well educated. So I'm not like I just said, I'm going to go on a retreat. No, I was educated. And then when I did start the retreat, that was 1980. And by then I was 30. So I started the retreat, but I had things to do. It wasn't like you just sat there and meditated. No, I mean I had a sadhana. You could say I had the philosophy. I'm interdependent with the universe. Okay, so I'm not a closed system. I'm an interdependent system. I'm breathing the air. I'm eating the food. Okay, so that's sort of coming into me. Well, what am I giving back out? So no, okay, philosophically, may I be of benefit? So that's a philosophy, so you could say. So I had that. We talked about those 3 things I mentioned earlier. So I had the philosophy, I am interdependent with the universe around me. May I be of benefit? Then the second one, psychology. Well, I tried to be altruistic. I'm trying to get more in touch with myself in a deeper way. I was doing a tantric practice, so that's with deities. That's archetypes. You can think of tantric deities or archetypes. So archetype of compassion, archetype of wisdom. So in Buddhism, we have our deities for that. And so I had a particular deity that was dealing more with wisdom. So that, and then within that, I had a sadhana. The sadhana took me 30, 40 minutes to do. And it was all memory. I'd memorized it. So I could sit there for 30 minutes and go into my meditation and start chanting. And then I would have these visualizations that I could do. And then I had to recite upwards of 15 million mantras. That's why it took 3 years, yeah. Although I managed to do that in 2 years. So I did 5 sessions a day, about 2 hours every session. So I got up at about 3:30 in the morning, meditated till about 5:30 or 6. Then I had breakfast and things, and 7 till 9 I had a session, and then from like 10 till 12 I had a session. There's 3 sessions in the morning. Then I would relax. I'd go and get water and things. It's up in the mountains. I was at 8,000 feet. I had to walk maybe a half a mile to get water. I had to tank on my back down to a creek, go and get the water, and climb back up the mountain. I can say, that was hell. Anyway, did that, and then I had some, every so often, for food, a young Tibetan monk whose father was in retreat. Actually, somebody say, so I got to tell you a story. I've been telling you a lot of philosophy. I'll tell you a story. So this Tibetan man, when the Chinese invaded, he escaped Tibet with his wife, and so he comes to India. But then the sister shows up, and she's lost her husband to the Chinese and whatever. So she starts living with her. Well, then he now has 2 wives. Because just as it turns out, so he has 2 wives. Ends up fathering 11 children. Okay, and then for whatever reason, his 2 wives pass on, and he's still alive. So he becomes a monk. Because he said, "Well, I'm going to spend the last part of my life in meditation." And so he went up on the mountain. He was like, if my retreat hut was here, and it was just a stone hut in the mountains, and it was on a shoulder of a mountain, so it was quite open. Southern exposure, Himalayas. It was quite romantic that way. Anyway, so he lived a little bit below me. Anyway, his son, one of his 11 sons, had become a monk. So every 10 days or so, he would come up the mountain with food for his father. And so I managed to arrange it that he would then bring my food too. It was just, some carrots and potatoes and stuff. I mean, I had the wheat and the other things I needed up there in cans and tins. So I had my food. So anyway, from 12 o'clock till 3 o'clock, I would cook my lunch and do whatever prayers I wanted to do. Then 3 to 5 was another session, and then 5 to 6 till about 8:30 was a session. I go to bed at 9, wake up at 3:30, and every one of those was a recitation of my deity, practice the sadhana, 40 minutes, and then mantras, and with that, then there's meditations and visualization. So I was busy. It wasn't just sort of sitting there. So yeah. So I did that for 2 years, and then I did another 1.5 years of other meditation. So that's what I did for 3 years. and what I think about it, is I didn't go crazy. At least I don't think I did. I mean, you guys seem to be okay with me.
Were there ever times when you
felt unhappy? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was I had 10 years of education. And I'd done enough retreats, short retreats, that I was familiar. So I wasn't like just throw myself into a room and lock the door. No. And also, I mean, when I stepped out of my little meditation hut, I mean, I had a view of the Kangara Valley from 8,000 feet, southern exposure. So the sun came up here and went down over there, and with the plains of India below me, and that was quite nice. Also, my mother had sent me a little tape recorder, and I had Vivaldi's 4 Seasons. And so periodically I would sit outside on a rock, and when I was feeling a little bit unhappy, and put a little set of earphones on I had and play Vivaldi, and relax. And then one thing the Tibetans do would be, they said, like, when you're a little unhappy, which periodically would happen, yeah, I mean, for sure, come on, I'm a human being, is do something a little decadent. So, for example, here you go to a Starbucks and buy a macchiato, like full of caramel and stuff, So in India, I'd have a little bit of, powdered milk, and I'd make myself a really sweet tea, sit outside with my Vivaldi and drink my sweet tea and look at the view. And then I'd say to myself, if you can't be happy here, where can I be happy? I mean, come on, I've got the Dalai Lama down the mountain from me, and I've got all these other monks down there, and I had some meditator retreats around me, which is really nice. So I mean, there was a little community of us on that shoulder of the mountain. There was about 8 or 9 Tibetan monks. I was the only Westerner up there, and things. So it was so fun. It was good. Actually, at one point, Harvard Medical School came to Dharamsala, and they wanted to test the monks about psychic heat. Could they generate that internal heat that could melt snow and stuff like that? Anyway, and so Dalai Lama gave them permission. They came up the mountain, and they started to test some of these monks that were in retreat. And they actually tested me too. I mean, not that I wasn't, I was a Westerner. They wanted the Tibetans, so I was just a little side thing because they found me on the mountain. Anyway, but one of the monks actually had it, and they ended up inviting him to go to they got permission from the Dalai Lama, and he went to Harvard Medical School in America and got tested, and sure enough, he could, and it was, okay, actually it's a good story. So, psychic heat is that, for example, Milarepa was a great yogi in Tibet, lived in the mountains with no clothes on, just a little cotton shawl around him, in snow and wind and all that, never died, I mean, he lived for years in the mountains like that. He ate nettles and stuff. I mean, he's a real renunciant saint. Anyway, so it is something quite famous that there's a possibility that you can make your body a little furnace. That basically the cold and the snow doesn't bother you. So anyway, they had heard about this and they wanted to test it. So they invited him to Harvard. Okay, so they're going to test your body. So okay, they put ECGs on you and some things, and then they put a rectal thermometer up your bum because they want to know what your core temperature is doing. And then they ask you to meditate. I mean, it's horrible. Anyway, so they tested him. And what was interesting is core temperature didn't change. He was 98.6, but the surface of his skin was 102. So, and it was I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of tests because that was back in 1980 or 1982 or 81 that they did that, and there's been tons of research since then. So there is a possibility of creating that ability, and it's interesting. Core temperature doesn't change, but the surface of your skin goes up, in this case, to 102 or 103, and you're not sick. I mean, his experience is being bliss. Like he goes in, it's in your abdomen, and he described it as like he said he didn't practice for a long time and never got any results, and then finally at one point he said he was meditating, and then he had this sort of experience of seeing a dish of rosebuds in his stomach, and he sort of went into it, and he got very blissful and things, and he stayed there in this state of very great bliss, and that was tumo. That was one of the internal signs of tumo. The outside, again, his body didn't feel cold. Anyway, plus a fun story. He was moving his awareness to his abdomen, and what's the word for that? Our body has an automatic system of like digesting food and stuff. There's a word for that. Yeah, autonomic. Yeah. Anyway, so he somehow accesses that, and then because his mind is able to merge with those nerves in his abdomen, that generates the bliss and creates that. That's according to this what's called the scientific side of it. Okay. Anyway, interesting.
I just had a follow-up question. I thought Tumo was like a breathing exercise, or that's something.
Yeah, it's part of it. I mean, there's a whole bunch. There's breathing, focus of your attention. There's some exercises you can do. That's what gets you to experience Tumo. Tumo itself wouldn't require breathing anymore. Like it's sort of like exercising to go and run a marathon. Once you're running the marathon, you don't need to worry about exercising anymore. So like that, yeah.
There's actually a documentary on YouTube where Jokers of Tibet, they do a demonstration.
There's a documentary about really.
Is it TUMMO or TUMO? I'm not sure. And that's again, ask Lama Google. Okay, sorry.
So looking at the 5 minutes, and it's obviously a cultural war, sort of. I mean, we got
Cultural war?
Yeah, I mean, all these allegations. It's just weird.
Allegations of what?
How it's bad, how it's a site that you get into your lives, something like that. But here, I found it funny how we have worse demons around here that have actually been validated by the priesthood of science, such as nihilism, Catholicism. Did you ever have to wrestle to just get rid of those kinds of thoughts? Like, were you ever really, really puzzled? I mean, now that I think about it, they're dumb, but were you ever really, really puzzled by nihilism or solipsism while going into meditation?
No.
That's funny because
I mean, that's where, like, if you're caught up with outside people's opinions and stuff, then you could live with some doubts and quandary. That's where Buddhism says, okay, get in touch with yourself, then do an analysis. What seems real and what seems unreal? What seems valid and what seems invalid? And that way you clarify for yourself. And then, I used to like it when, in Canada, when the knock on the door, and, there was this, it's called the lighthouse, the evangelists. The evangelists would come to the door, And I'd say, oh, great, I can have a good philosophical conversation with this guy. Not an argument, but just sort of, okay, tell me about your stuff and things and stuff. And what was always sort of sad for me was they could only quote from a Bible. They couldn't quote from personal experience. They only could talk about, well, the Bible says this, and the Bible says that. And I'm not criticizing it. I mean, I think Christianity is good. If someone's a good Christian, that's great. But on the side of Buddhism, no, it's an analysis and arriving at a conclusion, and in that way then you have stability about who you are, and you don't have what you call external demons to bother you. It's earlier on I talked about, like, there's the shit we have inside of ourselves, the problems and the misunderstandings. Well, getting in touch with yourself gives you that personal space where then you're at peace, and then you can look at things that's complicated for you and try to bring them to a good resolution. Okay, so that's a meditation.
So you been in that tradition, kind of debating these
A little bit, yeah.
rigorous.
I didn't do there's different styles of monks and nuns. I was called a non-cloistered. So if I'd been cloistered, that is in a monastery, yes, I would have had to do the debating and things like that. I had what you call sort of private teachers that taught me. So I'm not as intellectually astute as some of them that were in the monastery, but you still have to study and you have to be intelligent and you have to be able to answer questions and things. But I didn't actually do the debating thing that you're talking about. But that's okay. There's, as I say, you can practice Buddhism according to what suits you best.
By the way, I've had a witness come to the door and do the same thing. And I've had a couple of experiences where they were really engaged in being able to talk about cross-religion.
Yeah.
Particular person.
Yeah, no, if somebody's spiritual, I think it's great. And I'm not going to criticize them or try to debunk them. I'm going to have a dialogue with them. It's fun. If someone, in one way, okay, just touching it lightly, because I don't go in here, but, God's an ultimate. God's in everything. Well, for Buddhism, that's the nature of reality. An enlightened being is in harmony with the nature of reality. We just don't call it God and a creator. But the thing is, there's some interesting bridges there. Again, anyway, that's good. So let's not go too far. We're here to talk about this sort of stuff. But I think anybody that's religious has got a blessing in their life.
But I have a question about mindfulness. When you try to be mindful, right, and you know everything, right? Like when you say you try to find self.
Yeah.
Like myself, sometimes when I feel like I go into this darkness, and I think I'm afraid, or sometimes by emotions, like I say, over trauma, start pushing me. So how do you deal with all of that process, or
Well, it's okay. Well, one is to try to focus on just the experience of your breathing. Okay, so you try to rest or be peaceful with the breathing. So the other phenomena that could come up, you could say you ignore it, or you just don't put emphasis to it. So, yeah, I mean, if a little bit of fear comes up or something, then okay, no, I'm breathing, I'm here, I'm present, like that. Those would be let's say you build up a bank account of, I'm comfortable with myself. And now, if, for example, with darkness, I'm meditate with your eyes partly open. It'll avoid that one. Because it's a state of awareness being present. So I can sit here and I breathe, and your attention is on the movement of the chest. You call the sensations and such. So you try to hold that. And you could add to that then, I inhale, I'm peaceful. I exhale, I'm peaceful. You could just add a little mantra even if you want. And then when you establish this sort of buffer, this personal space of I'm okay, then those other things, they tend to move away. If we have a sense of insecurity or something, then yeah, it's more difficult. So how do you counter insecurity or a lack of understanding is first establishing, getting to be at peace with yourself, like that you are comfortable. So maybe meditate with eyes open. Again, having good instruction on mindfulness. I'm sort of doing an overview. If you want to, I just organize. I do 10-day retreats in Mexico, and they're not too expensive, and you get really good Mexican food. It's actually in a Catholic seminary is where we do these, because they have all over Mexico. There's these wonderful Catholic places, and they're mostly empty. They don't have a lot happening, so they rent them to us Buddhists. And actually, we're going to meditate in a few minutes, but we used to go to a Benedictine monastery, and they had room for about 25 people, separated from the monastery. It was close to San Miguel Allende. Anyway, and so we had our meditation retreats, 10 days, but we'd have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the Benedictine monks. Now, they're in silence, they would not talk or stuff like that. They produced the food and such and things, but we'd all sit together and stuff. And so at first, a bunch of Buddhists, we're supposedly atheists, but actually that's not true. I mean, we're not against something, so we're just practitioners. So they were sort of okay, and I got to sit beside the abbot, because I'm the teacher, yeah, so abbot and me. And he's a really nice guy, so we'd chit-chat a little bit. That was the first retreat. Then we came another year, a couple years, or every year we'd do the retreat, and that place was good. And the second year, they started warming up to us. And in the third year, they said, we love you Buddhists, because you hold silence, because the retreats are in silence, and you're so friendly and warm, like, wow, we like you. And then the fourth time we did it, because they would do their prayers. They would do, I don't know the prayer thing, but they did one for St. Benedict and one for Guadalupe, or Santa Maria, something like that. It would take 2-3 minutes each one. And when we would do a prayer in Tibetan, because it was a nice tuneful one. It was Lama Sangye Lama Chode. Okay, like that. Just a 4-line prayer. And now when we do that, so even from the beginning, they did their prayer, we did our prayer, and then we'd eat. Like that. That was so in the fourth year, the abbot said to all of his monks, just about 12 of them, he said, my monks are going to chant with you, because you chant with us. So we're going to chant with you. So he made all of his monks do our chant. It was very sweet, So anyway, we were talking about dealing with anxiety and such, or just distraction. So meditating, eyes open, and building up this personal space of being able to be peaceful with yourself, like I'm okay. And so then when something, anxiety or something unpleasant comes in, you're able to say, no, okay, I'm going to breathe through you. I'm not going to accept what you're thinking, like that. Because you could say you're establishing a more clear state of consciousness compared to the regular, crazy mind that we have. Okay? Okay, now I've been talking a lot. Let's meditate. Actually, no, we're going to, we'll meditate for at least 10 minutes.